The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is sponsored by Two Fat Lardies, Geek Nation Tours, and the generous donations of you, the listener. Thank you to everyone for your most generous support. We really appreciate it. The Meeples and Miniatures podcast, episode number 240. Fourth quarter football, with hosts Neil Shuck, Mike Hobbs and Mike Whittaker, and guest Andrew Laing from Fourth Quarter Football. This show was recorded between the 3rd and the 10th of January, 2018. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. My name is Neil Shuck, and on this evening's show I am joined once again by, it is the Welsh Wizard himself, it is Mr. Michael Hobbs. Hello, sir.
Hang on a second, Neil, I'm eating a cookie.
Didn't you? Hang on a second. Don't you know the golden rule of podcasting? Don't eat a cookie just as I'm about to introduce you, even if it is from a very nice Mr. Arnold.
It's a very special cookie. I couldn't resist. I couldn't start my cookies until we started the show. But hello, Neil. Hello, listeners. Tis us in 2018.
Tis us in 2018.
Now over to Mike.
Indeed. Hello, and yes, we have our resident troubadour. It is Mr. Michael Whittaker. Hello, sir.
Hello, thank you, Hobbsy, for the extra 30 seconds to finish my last cookie. Thank you, Jay.
Heathens both, eating cookies live on the show.
The only reason you aren't is because yours haven't arrived yet.
It hasn't been posted yet. I'm still looking at them on the shelf. I got yours off, Mike, straight away.
Don't eat them. He'd deserve it, but don't eat them.
It depends how nice he is to me tonight.
Oomph.
But yes, to Jay, the veteran wargamer, thank you, sir. Very much appreciated.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Thank you, Jay.
Indeed. Cookies across the ocean and all that.
And for reference, the Chips Ahoy ones dunk very nicely.
Yes, I'm going to get a cup of coffee in a minute to test out the dunking capabilities of their cookies. I might do milk and coffee. Just so I can do cold and hot, do a proper scientific experiment.
Oreos you're supposed to dunk in milk.
Yeah.
But the chocolate chip ones dunk quite nicely in tea, and I wouldn't do it to a nutter butter because I like them as they are.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. There's 4 nutter butter, so I can do one dry, which I'm doing now, one in milk, one in tea, and I got one left then for whichever one I prefer the most. That's science, that is.
That is. I'm dead impressed.
And if I really like him, then I'll go and open that parcel I got upset on my shelf and Nick Neal's out of there. Oh, and Dave's. Dave's is in there as well.
Dave's is in there as well.
Yes, Neil. Dave's biscuit cookies is in your parcel, so you have to share.
Okay. I'm sure he'll be impressed with those. Thank you very much.
Well, if he doesn't like them, just say, and I can just open the parcel now.
No, he'll love them. He'll love them. I'm sure he will be most impressed.
I want photographic evidence of you handing them over.
Okay. I'm sure I can arrange something like that in Photoshop.
Yeah.
Yes, me handing it over to somebody else's hand. Yes, that is Mr. Love's hand, honest. Yes.
Well, it's been so long we can't remember what his hands look like.
Well, he's not been on the show, but his influence looms large. If you've listened to the last episode, oh my word, the teachings of the great guru appear to be permeating. It's not good.
In moderation.
Yeah, indeed. And from the look of the Kickstarters that are starting in the next 2 or 3 weeks, I'm suddenly going to going, yeah, that ain't going to work. But more of that in a minute.
Indeed.
Right, okay. So, yes, welcome one and all. Here we are again into another year. Yes, our 11th year of podcasting. On today's show, we actually have an interview for you, which was arranged at very short notice. But we will be speaking to Andrew Laing, who is the man who heads up a company called Fourth Quarter Football, who are producing a game called Fourth Quarter Football, which is an American football game. And since there's at least a couple of us who are American football fans, one who still has some interest in the season.
Oh, yeah. There is no truth in the rumour I flew back from the Vikings game for the interview, but it was darn close.
Yeah. So what do you reckon against the Saints then, mate?
Oh, I think we might have them. Drew Brees is not going to be able to hear himself think.
I have literally no idea what you're talking about.
So you think you can shut down Drew Brees and 2 running backs?
Why didn't you watch rugby? It's much better.
Short answer, yes. Ask me next week.
Yes, as I say, by the time you'll hear this, you'll already know the answer. But I'm sure this conversation
Or not care.
Indeed. Yes, yeah. So we will be speaking to Andrew Laing all about the Kickstarter Fourth Quarter Football, which is ongoing at this point in time. What we will do now is we will take a break, and when we come back, we will be catching up with everything we've been up to since Christmas.
Cookie ahoy.
The eagles have gone. Britain lies defenseless in a cruel world. Since the birth of our Lord, it has been 456 years. What sins have we committed to bring this punishment to Britain? I speak, of course, of the Saxons. They came as allies, but now they seek conquest. The lands of the Britons lie ravaged before them. Blood runs red in our island. We need a leader to stand against them. We need a man to bring together the Britons in common cause. We seek a Dux Britanniarum.
Right, that's enough of that. Dux Britanniarum from Two Fat Lardies. They really are very good.
What have we been playing? What have we been buying? We might even have painted something. The Meeples and Miniatures crew reveal all.
And we're back.
Right, first thing to check, Mr. Hobbs, have you finished eating yet?
Oh yeah, I only had one. It's been good.
Okay, cool.
There will be no more eating. I've done my bit.
I have no more cookies. I can't do no more eating.
I forgot to bring my tea up, so I can't be doing any dunking.
Oh,
Got it.
disaster. So we are at the part of the show where we find out what we've been up to in the hobby for the last couple of weeks. It's been several weeks since we've discussed this, so it's just a bit of time to catch up with what we've been doing. Of course, it's been the Christmas period, so maybe we've kind of been, our hobby has been thrown out of whack a little bit by the festive period, but we will soon find out. Before we do this, let's talk about something that we all have in common before we go off into our individual things, because it would appear that over the last few days we have all now received large boxes, very large boxes in some instances. For indeed, Mythic Battles has, well, for some of us, the rest of Mythic Battles, for some of us, potentially all of Mythic Battles, has finally arrived. And there was much rejoicing.
Yay!
This is one reason why episode 239 got a little bit delayed, because I got a bit distracted over the weekend with doing things like punching cardboard and loading my storage box, and obviously going through all the boxes and checking all the contents to make sure everything was okay. It took a while. Oh my word, there's a lot of it.
And I quote from Her Majesty indoors, as DHL managed to deliver it in the very beginning of their 1 hour delivery window, in the minute and a half I was out taking the builders a cup of tea. Oh my God, what have you bought now?
I had one of those as well.
I will let Neil add the picture of my box to the show notes. It is not small.
Indeed not.
It's sitting on most of 4, what I assume are 18-inch square quarry stone floor tiles, and it's higher than that.
So, Mr. Whittaker, what's in your box?
Stuff.
What do you mean?
It arrived 2.5 hours ago, and I haven't as yet got round to opening it. Otherwise, I would have not had tea, not finished the other things I need to finish today, and not be on this podcast.
Call yourself a gamer.
Terrible.
It's a box like that has been on your doorstep for more, with you being at home for 2.5 hours, and you haven't even opened it. Oh my word! So I don't even know if it's your entire pledge. You don't even know if you've got another box that size.
No, but I could go away for 20 minutes and find out if you like.
Yeah, do that.
It's not that well wrapped. It was well packaged, but not that well packaged. And of course, we all know what happened to Mr. Hobbs's collection, because he was tweeting about the fact that he opened the box and put it all on his shelves.
Yeah.
In shrink wrap.
Yes, because don't like having boxes and boxes. Well, no, I do, but the wife doesn't like me having boxes and boxes of stuff everywhere. So I put it away so I can take it out.
Strange that.
Yeah, take it out and unpack it at my leisure, which I've started doing, Neil.
So you haven't ripped everything open just to check to make sure that everything's there? Nothing's broken?
No, well, yeah, I'm working my way through it gently. I've done half of it.
Only way the contents of that box are getting on a shelf in this office involves removing a copy of Terraforming Mars, about 2 feet shelf's worth of spare electronic bits, including a full control stick for Elite, several boxes of spare hard drives, and even then it's not all going to fit.
Yeah, I had to put quite a bit of stuff into the attic.
The place I'd like to put it is currently being abused by the builders.
There was a little more than what I was anticipating.
There was a lot of stuff on there.
It's not a small box.
No.
Okay, so we're getting this box and that box and this box. Right. Okay. And then you don't actually realise until it arrives just how big even like the base boxes are. They're huge.
They're chunky.
One could, I think, on this box that DHL delivered to me this afternoon, one could comfortably sit on it, and certainly Hobbsy's legs would hang down.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, big, weighty. So okay, so as any person who's opened and gone through all his stuff and like loaded his, I've loaded my storage box.
I've done half my storage box. Go on, I'm getting there. I've been busy.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mythic Monolith sent it in a very nice storage box. I'm keeping it in it.
Did you not get the other storage box?
I don't know yet. I've only got one box at the moment.
Yeah, but did you? But as
I've done the Titan pledge, so I had Titan bundle, so I have whatever's in the Titan bundle.
You didn't get a storage
Yes.
box. That was separate, wasn't it?
No, that was I think that was in the time bundle.
No, half of the what do you get a man who has everything pledge was a box to put it in.
And oh boy, do you need it! Because by the time you got all the cards and punched everything out, there ain't a lot of space left in that storage box, especially once you sleeve them.
And I think, Mike, if you went for the Titan expansion, which is the one that me and I think Neil went for, you've only got half of it.
Oh, jeez.
Yes, you might only have half of it.
But
Because
I only have a shipping notice for one thing at the moment.
Yeah. They
Yes.
send it in 2 lots. But it's unusual you didn't get the first batch. That's unusual.
What might happen is that you'll get another box, the same size.
Exactly the same size. Yeah.
Jeez.
Put it this way, Mike. The first box that me and Neil had the deluxe storage box in it and the 4 expansions. And that's all. The second box, which looked about the same size as your box, had the core box, the stretch goals, and all of the expansion sets and the battlefield.
All of the little box expansion sets. Yeah.
We shall have a look, but not right now.
Okay, so just to pre-warn you, you will need I think it is 730 88 by 63.5 card sleeves.
Oh, only that many.
Yeah, to sleeve all the cards that come in the game.
The full Seventh Continent pledge has more.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, did you order the card sleeves for that, by the way?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I think the card sleeves for that was some huge, ridiculous amount. Anyway, but yeah, just to let you know, so there's 700 cards.
But anyway, the storage box isn't part of the Titan page. That was an optional extra.
Ah, okay. Whatever.
Was it? Oh. What I've noticed so far, other than the fact of you need a shed load of card sleeves. Of course, the other thing they did is that because a lot of the cards are quite text heavy, you get almost double the amount of cards you need because the game is produced in both English and French. So you end up with this shed load of cards that you don't need. And it's like, it's like one of those. I don't need these. They take up a load of room. I'm almost loath to throw them away. It's like all the multilingual stuff you get for Conan. It's just like that. It's like, oh my word, there's tons of it.
You'd not enjoy playing something like Pandemic Legacy where you're supposed to tear cards up, would you?
Oh, I'm sorry. That just sends shivers down my spine. So there's just tons of stuff. But I mean, from what I've seen of everything, having gone through all the models and stuff, they've done a fantastic job. There's a couple of them which need a bit of filling. I noticed there's a couple of them where you've had monsters glued together because they've been assembled. A lot of the fittings are quite tight. There's a couple which aren't quite so good. At the point where I'm thinking of having to paint stuff, I'm going to have to fill a couple of gaps. But that's probably a long way off. So yeah, it's. I was so massively impressed. I've just got all these models, kind of trying to work out how the heck I'm going to, how I'm going to put all this stuff. Yeah, it's a logistics nightmare.
But one that's nice to have.
Oh, indeed. I mean, there have been a few issues, and there are some people that aren't happy with those bits and pieces. But considering what they've sent out, and just the sheer volume of what they sent out, and the sheer amount of stuff that you're getting, the fact that they've pretty much delivered. Okay, I think we're probably looking at, for some people, it's about 3 weeks late. 3, maybe 4 weeks late. In the grand scheme of things, and as far as all Kickstarters are concerned, it's not bad going, is it?
I kind of class it as on time, because
By Kickstarter standards, he's on time.
Oh yeah. I am chomping at the bit to get it out on the table. All being well, that will occur in the next week or so. I'm already regretting not getting two things:
yes.
extra set of dice and the terrain pack.
And possibly more boxes to put it in.
Well, I think Mr. Really Useful Box is going to profit yet again. But from stuff that we could have had at the Kickstarter, certainly an extra dice pack and the scenery set, because I was thinking, the scenery set, okay, I don't know if you really need it. And then in like the second or third scenario in the in the first book, it starts using ophthalmos shards, which are the blue ones, not the red ones. And it's like they were only in the scenery box. And it's like, oh,
Just use some of the blue things from Conan.
yeah, it's blue things from Conan, or I've got some blue gems, but extra set of dice would really come in useful. So I may have found an extra set of dice.
They'll be on retail soon anyway.
Is this actually coming to retail?
I think so.
Yeah,
If it doesn't, don't try and buy it on eBay.
Mm.
Do you want to know what the Titan bundle is going for on eBay?
I've seen some on eBay for like
£100.
Yes, So I saw a couple. One was like £750, and there was another for about £900, and it's like, oh, okay.
So anyway,
Yeah.
Myth Battles has arrived. We've all got it. Some of us have looked at it. What's next?
Okay. Yes. So yeah, we'll be drawing over that for the next few weeks and stuff. Right. So I'll go first, shall I? For a change.
Well, I'm going last, so
Okay.
I'll go in the middle.
Right. So what have I played? Well, had a few kind of party games over Christmas. Not a lot I can think of. I mean, we played was it Ingenious and a few other bits and pieces like that. That's a really good game. That's a Wanakinichi game. That's a really good game. And a couple of other things like that. But from the stuff that we're concerned, I only had a couple of games of Arkham Horror, the card game, which played with Mr. Hickman, my other mate Dave, and we played the second and third parts of the initial campaign, whose name escapes me. Night of the something.
Night of the Zealots.
Night of the Zealots. Yeah. Oh dear. Yeah. Well, put it this way. Yeah, it was very, very Arkham. It's a really nice game. It can be incredibly nasty. If the wrong things happen at the wrong time, you can be nerfed and then some, and that's basically what happened to me.
it always reminds me, in the way people describe it, of there's a common saying about the D&D Ravenloft scenarios that if you aren't playing them such that you're spending the last half of the scenario sharing your last hit point around the party, you're doing it wrong. And it sounds like with Arkham Horror, if you aren't sharing around your last point of sanity,
pretty much, yeah. But it's Cthulhu. You never win in Cthulhu. You just go along for the ride.
You just stave off the inevitable for a bit longer and descend into gibbering madness.
Indeed. So it was great fun. At the particular point when my FBI investigator was being attacked by two night gaunts, I thought was getting a bit steep. So that's basically what we played. Arkham Horror died horribly, but really fun. And so we're looking at looking forward to that. Interestingly, was it Fantasy Flight have just announced that their next campaign set for Arkham Horror is Return of the Night of the Zealots.
Oh.
So yes. So just in case you didn't kill the Ghoul Priest, he might still be around. Yes. Anyway. So that was on playing. Painting. Haven't done any painting as such. Done a lot of assembling over Christmas. Been assembling lots of 20mm plastic samurai. from the Samurai Battles box because I decided that I wanted something to do over Christmas, and it was either paint an army or do something else. And so I ended up looking at assembling these Zvezda 20mm plastic samurai. They're a soft plastic samurai, which is the stuff that came out before Samurai Battles did, is decent enough, and that's all quite easy. The models that come in Samurai Battles are a pain in the backside. They're very nice, but why on earth you would choose to have? I mean, the average foot soldier on a 20mm scale model. Okay, so so these are really small. Is in 4 bits, and the average cavalry figure is in 7 bits. So it took me
I used to think the Airfix plastics where you had 2 bits to put the machine gunner together were bad.
Yeah. Bottom line is, it took me an entire weekend to put 122 miniatures together. It took me a whole weekend. But anyway, got that sorted. So yeah, I'm looking forward to playing Samurai Battles, which, if you're unaware, Samurai Battles is the Art of Tactic and Command and Colours variant for playing Sengoku period battles with. So looking forward to playing that in the not too distant future. Have I bought anything? Okay, confession time. Yeah, I bought another 2 boxes of plastic samurai, a box of infantry, and a box of cavalry.
What sort of sadist
Having
are you,
assembled
Neil?
Well, these were
masochist.
these were the softer plastic ones.
Oh, right. Okay.
These are the softer plastic ones because you can't. The Samurai Battles box set it's like Rocking Horse. What's it? You can't get hold of it these days. But I wanted some because I'd assembled all the plastic stuff, and basically, long and short of it is that in order to get like 4 particular models, you need to buy 3 boxes, and I only had 2 boxes of infantry. I still haven't decided what rule set to use with it yet. But I've decided that basically my big battle samurai are going to be these 20 more plastic samurai that I've got. So I bought. So I basically finished what I needed for those. I may have bought the Mythic Battles RPG book with a spare set of dice off eBay because I was after a spare set of dice.
Yeah.
And someone happened to be selling it, and it's like, and the book was like, they were just selling it at like retail price, but it's like RPG book and a full set of dice. I want the dice, and the RPG book will be nice for because actually the background story and stuff in Mythic Battles is quite good. So I might have succumbed and bought that. And I have backed the fourth quarter football Kickstarter, which we will be hearing all about later in the show. But that's me.
Okay. Any Christmas presents you had? Sort of. No holiday, no hobby related Kimbo presents. Oh, not even from Josh.
No, not at all.
Oh
no.
Bad luck. Right, what have I been doing? Playing bugger all. Sorry, Neil, you probably bleep that, wouldn't you? Because you tend to bleep things these days. Annie says hi, by the way. And she asked me to say.
That's definitely getting.
We'll get.
That will be funny because that will get bleeped. She asked me to say B.
Yeah.
We'll get on to Annie
Yes.
later.
Yes, so.
I'm sorry. Step away from that. She's not a well woman.
She's not very well, no. Anyway, so what are we doing? Buying nothing other than a couple of pots of gold paint.
What is this, Mr. Hobbs? You have turned round. Mind you, didn't you do this last year?
No, No, no. I lasted about 24 hours last year before I bought something.
Well, this is it. So, this is it. As I say, so this year you have turned around and said, "I'm not buying anything."
Not for the whole year, Neil. That'd be stupid. I'm going to see how far I can go. But see, the thing is, last year I didn't have 400 or 500 Lord of the Rings figures sat on in a big box looking at me to be painted. Plus, a cupboard's
This is true.
so stacked full, it's actually forming its own gravity well.
And who went and put Mythic Battles in it then?
Just to tip it over. Yeah. So at the moment, there's nothing I really need, so I'm not buying anything. Mythic Battles has arrived.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Run that statement by me again. Nothing I
need.
really. Nothing I really. Nothing I really. No. It makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah. So anyway, Mythic Battles has arrived, as we've spoken about. I've also had the Traveller card game arrive, which is another Kickstarter I did last year. So that's a customizable card game. So, which actually arrived on the same day as Mythic Battles, and has been quickly looked at and put away in a box. But I want to try and get that and play that pretty soon. I played one game since we last spoke, and that was a very drunken game of Odin's Ravens on Christmas Day with my sister-in-law. So played nothing. Painting. I have done some painting though. My Rohan army is nearly finished.
Yeah, you've been very industrious on that again, haven't you? I've noticed you've been posting lots and lots of pictures.
Yeah, so I've got the last 6 cavalry are 3/4 painted. Just got to do some robes, some washes, and some shields, and they're done.
You've been painting character figures and stuff, haven't you?
Yeah, I got all the characters done for Rohan as well. So I did.
Made a very nice job of Theoden.
Yeah, Theoden was nice. Enjoyed him. But yeah, I pinned all those up. So that's done. That's a big tick in the box. That's the second Lord of the Rings army completed. I started on the elves as well. So that's what I've been doing the last today, trying to work out gold colours for the elves. Because I want them to look... I want the gold or the brassy armour to look like it's got a patina on it, like a greeny patina. So it looks old.
Oh, like a greeny filigree sort of thing.
Yeah. I called it verdigris, but it's not verdigris because it's the wrong metal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'm doing those. And other than that, for Christmas, I had a few hobby-related prezzies. I had the second Hobbit's Saga expansion for Lord of the Rings card game. Because apparently
Cool.
the first one is out of print, so the wife bought me the second one. Because it's the same thing, really, isn't it? She said.
That's on the doorstep, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got that.
Yeah.
And I had a flock.
Need the first one.
Yeah, I know. I'm hunting one down. And I got a flock box. A box of flock.
What?
A flock box. Electrostatic flock box. For applying flock to models. Flock that stands up.
Seriously?
Yeah. Have you seen... Okay, so Gareth Beamish runs a...
Static grass is what you mean.
Yeah, flock. It's called a flock box.
No. Flock is not static grass. They're two different things.
Oh, why don't they call it a static grass box? They call it a flock box. It's a box of flock.
Well, they're idiots.
Yes. Don't interrupt. So, if you ever looked at Gareth Beamish from ADC Paintings, One More Places, with that lovely sandy, happy grass and stuff, it does all that. Makes your static grass stand up in a static way. So I got that.
Yeah. It makes it all stand up, and then it looks completely unnatural. So you have to mash it back down again.
I'm only going to use it here and there. I'm going to use it. I'm going to do a little bit around Bilbo, my Bilbo Baggins figure, which I've just painted. I think he'll look nice, like he's on a lawn. And maybe a little bit on the elves, make them look. They tend to look after their battlefield.
The static got on a lawn. Makes it on a lawn. He was sat on a lawn, and we were saying, "Oi, Sam, this needs cutting."
Well, he's a very short flock. Little,
The only other real use for that is very British Civil War cricketers and Morris dancers.
Indeed. And Rommel bases, because it looks great at 6mm. You've got a tank going through, it looks like it's a hayfield. Sure. So there we go. So that's about me. Oh yeah, and Steve Bond. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Steve.
He was very nice. He got me a Dark Angel Primus captain for Christmas.
Oh, cool.
It was really nice of him.
Very nice.
I was very pleased with that. So there we go. That's me. All done.
Marvellous.
Super.
Mr. Whittaker, over to you.
Oh, so yeah, what have I been doing? Not really. Went to America, played some war games. So yeah,
Yes. Come on. Tell us about your gaming in Minneapolis.
So yeah, flew out to the Twin Cities, stuck James on a plane to Idaho Falls because I really don't want to spend 6 days with him mooning over his girlfriend for obvious reasons. What do we do? So setting aside
It says you're doing a small green fruit impression.
Exactly. So a small hairy green fruit, moreover. So I had a couple of very pleasant days, courtesy of Jeff Newsden, who is a listener on the show. Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Jeff.
We have actually come across him before, as I believe he also traded as the War Artisan, who do some very nice Napoleonic rules, which I got to play. Some quite interesting Napoleonic ships rules, and a few other things. They are War Artisan, all one word spelt with an S.com, and well worth checking out. So, had 2 games. I offered to demo a Lardy's game for the Centurions wargaming group, which Jeff is a member of. So we took ourselves to the Source, which is a freaking huge wargame store in Roseville, which is just out the centre of Minneapolis. And I stuck assorted small bits of I ain't been shop mum support materials, such as the cards and the tokens, in my bag. And I ran them an I ain't been shop mum scenario, which was considerable fun, actually. I rather enjoyed that.
Cool.
The Germans got to attack for once. We did sort of a little Battle of the Bulgy scenario where some poor unsuspecting Americans are sitting on their reversed bit of the Siegfried line going, well, this is fun, and then the Germans turn up. So, yeah, that was fun. It was a good game. The advantage also was that it was a complete day to run the game, so it did actually finish, which is always a pleasant change for a game if I ain't being shot with people who aren't used to the rules.
Yeah, because otherwise it does tend to run a little bit long, doesn't it?
It can run a little bit long, yes. If you're not careful, it can run quite a bit long if you're not careful. So that was that. Following day, courtesy of Elliot, who is an expat Brit living in the Twin Cities, we had a Napoleonic game using using Jeffrey's set of rules, which I'm horribly blanking on the name of, which is really embarrassing. They're a very interesting set. I'll find the link for you in the and stick it in the show notes. But essentially, the idea behind them is they're grand tactical, and the trick behind scenario design is that you don't start with your forces neatly lined up, ready for action. You actually march on the table in column of division and deploy from there as you encounter the enemy. Now, so it was being played in, I think it was 6mm. I'll shoot me if I'm wrong. There are photos, and there will be a report on my blog fairly shortly. So we had 3 corps on the British side and 3 or 4 on the French, plus some Spanish guerrilla, trying to bravely defend the town that both the British and the French were advancing on. down two roads that joined at the town. So it's quite interesting from that point of view, in that you actually have to figure out how on earth you get out of column of march in a sensible way to deal with the French who are desperately trying to do the same on the other side. I have to say, I think it was a French victory, and I'm quite prepared to accept the blame as being the guest commander of the British for that as well. But it was terrible. It was really good fun. A thoroughly nice bunch of guys. I will be going back just because they're a thoroughly nice bunch of guys. And I have things I want to do in the Twin Cities when it's a little bit warmer than minus 31 centigrade with the wind chill.
Yeah, that's not good.
That's step outside and your face hurts. I mean that's with 5 layers on top. Literally, I had thermal shirt, t-shirt, polo shirt, fleece, and hoodie and fleece on, and I was still cold. It's just painfully cold, but it was really, really good fun. I had a great time, and I will definitely be going back. And thank you very much to Jeff and the Centurions and the ATF guys. That is alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. In that the group who meets at Elliot's, A, like their scotch, B, like their real cigars, and C, shoot weapons at each other by rolling dice. So ATF, it's quite a neat name. I quite liked it. So yeah, that was my trip to the States. In other wargaming news, we've had the club AGM. I'm still chairman. Still can't dump it off on anyone else.
If it's anything like when I was club chairman, it was because I was the only one still gullible to say, yeah, I'll do it for another year.
Well, as I have said for the last several years, it's quite simple. The day you think I'm not doing a good enough job, or you can actually bother to do a better one, I will not be offended if you stand against me. In fact, I will probably stand down. But so far, so good. It's all good fun. We have a bunch of stuff lined up for the new year. Expect to see the Dam Busters game again at Hammerhead. Expect to see Dead's Army at Robin if I can get hold of the Robin folks, which we haven't seen for a bit. Because after all, everything's better with zombies.
You know it's true, Neil. You gotta love a zombie.
It's true.
Yeah, zombies are good in certain contexts.
Yeah, 1940 home counties is a perfectly good place for them.
I mean, okay, German zombies are all right.
Captain Mannering, a zombies ripped Uncle Arthur's face off. And I quote from our first playtest. So yeah, other than that, I have officially become a man of not leisure. I've been working on the Duxbury Compendium for most of this week, although I didn't do anything today for reasons to do with catching up on the AGM and a few other things. We're up to 42 pages and counting. Lots of new stuff gone in, lots of new stuff still to go in. There are still, another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, about 12 items on the right subsection of the to-do list before we get on to the internal playtest, external playtest, and finalised sections of the to-do list. What else have I been doing on that score? Been catching up on blogging at a sensible rate again. So yeah, that's pretty much me being not a man of leisure.
Which kind of reminds me, Mr. Hobbs, you missed something off what you've been doing.
Oh, you mean spending an awful lot of Christmas writing stuff?
Indeed.
Yes. I know I got an awful lot more to write up because it's gone out to Jim and Aidan. They've come back with all the things that I made mistakes on. And it just proves how good an idea it is to have 2 or 3 people working on the same rule set.
Pretty much what I'm doing with Andy for the Duxbury Compendium. He will get a big... I mean, we play test scenarios, but me actually writing them up in the proper scenario format and handing him it and saying, right, you set it up, and let's find out whether my descriptions fall short.
Yeah.
And things like that. So
yeah, so I think the basic rules are done, which is about 42 pages. I've got to put all the diagrams in there. And this is only the playtest version.
Yeah.
This is only something that gives to the playtesters. So I've taken all the fantasy stuff out and just done the core rules.
So you've still got a bucket load of fluff and the photos of the pretty figures and...
Oh, it's going to be huge.
Yeah,
I mean, the total document, which includes all the fluff that Richard's been writing, just dumped in there. That's about 90 pages long.
good.
So the first, but what I want to do is concentrate on the core rules. Concentrate on a fantasy game that's just using infantry and cavalry, or infantry and mounted figures, and get that right, because that's the core of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything else sits on top of it. And all we've been doing the playtesting so far is trying all of these sort of fantasy elements in there to make them work. But it's the first time we've actually sat back and gone back to the core game. So I want to get that right. I mean, all the advanced stuff is written. You know, all the magic rules are written, flights, various monsters, and everything else. That's all written. So that can go in quickly, but we want to concentrate on the core stuff, on the basic stuff. So that's the first job. And that's the pain in the ass bit to actually write. Sorry.
So, what have I bought?
Oh, sorry, Mike, I thought you finished.
No,
Sorry,
I'm
Mike.
no
Yeah, because he said, "Oh, that's me." So he dived in.
This would be fantastic with the edit point. Back to you, Mike.
Back to me then. Yeah. So bought. What have I bought? I have a set of Vallejo old and new wood effects paints. They're actually Model Air mostly, but they go on with a brush just as nicely. They're basically a range of colours that allow you to do variously aged wood weathering, which are partly for things like Dark Ages buildings and the like, and partly because I have a bunch of model railway wagons to weather.
Mm-hmm.
So that was picked up for that. Firefly, the adventure game, Cutthroats, and whatever it's called, arrived this morning.
Oh, right, yeah.
Let's get the correct name for it. Firefly Adventures, Brigands and Browncoats, which I didn't Kickstarter, but because Gale Force 9 don't do Kickstarters, but I did pre-order. And it's one of those things, another thing that's going to sneak in ahead of Mythic Battles, I suspect, to be honest. I have not yet, despite being very, very tempted, pledged for fourth quarter football.
Really?
Oh. The major reason I might not is I have no one to play it with. Nearer than Leicester.
And since
he's
since
already
you
pledging,
know somebody is pledging for it and gone all in on it in Leicester, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You can come down here and have a game, and I'll make some cake. So yeah, and I will be pledging for Annie's Freya's Wrath just as soon as it comes out, because man, those figures are gorgeous. As will Hobbsy.
Well, I don't know.
On pain of something.
I don't know.
That was quite an impressive Twitter tantrum. You're a braver man than I am.
I might just wait until the last second and then sneak in.
No, definitely pledging on that.
They do look good, don't they?
Well, I have her. I have the first set of Shield Maiden she did, and I have the two Kati Manjua figures. The one in Roman Lorica Hamata is just beautiful.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I will be getting some more of those because they're just lovely, and should be added to everybody's Dark Ages forces.
Most definitely. I'm already thinking of a way to actually drop them into the game.
Well, yeah, quite. Yes.
Why not? Why not? I mean, it's your world. You can rig gender equality however the heck you like.
Plus, they're gorgeous figures. But
Did we say they were?
Yeah, it depends.
Did we say they were gorgeous figures?
I might pledge, I might not.
Yeah, that's pretty much the only thing I currently have my eyes on pledging. Other than that, it's more Ducks Brit writing, more blogging. I have a bunch of other things to write once I get done with the Ducks Brit compendium. Other than that, that's pretty much it, really. Back to the grind, more stuff to write, club to run. Still
cool. Okay, well, in that case, then, if that's all done, what we'll do, we will take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have quite a chat with Andrew Laing.
while Hobbsy goes and eats his cookies.
Indeed. Okay, and I think I feel I need to give an apology up front at this point. It's not, as I think I said earlier, it's not very often you tend to get, you can geek out with somebody not only about gaming but also about American football in one interview.
With three of
us.
Oh, God, what did you lot do? How long do you spend talking about stuff that, that nobody cares about? Go on.
Well, we
About
talk a little bit about American football as well as, and at points we do get a little technical. But so apologies in advance. But there's an awful lot of good stuff in there, honest.
Yeah. We're all going to learn something today. And that is how to play American football. Who says we're not educational?
Indeed.
The nation is vast. There are battlefields of old, great convention halls, and worlds of fantasy to explore. Who will guide us across this great geek nation?
Since 2010, Geek Nation Tours have been providing holidays for groups of like-minded people. Whatever your nature of geek, tabletop gaming, TV, film, comic books, sports or science, Geek Nation Tours caters for you. Visit www.geeknationtours.com for more details and join the great Geek Nation. Have you ever wondered what's going on in wargaming? We do too. So come with us as we go behind the hobby with the Meeples and Miniatures interview. We're very pleased to welcome to the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. It is Andrew Laing from Fourth Quarter Football. Hello, Andrew. How are you?
Hello, I'm very well.
It's great to talk to you again because this isn't the first time we've chatted, is it?
No, we met at the UK Games Expo right on the very first day. I think one of the first demos we did.
Yeah, because yes, I happened to be walking past a stand and there was American football, and it's like, ooh, American football game that isn't Blood Bowl.
Yes. We're 1 minute in and we've mentioned Blood Bowl already. I'm impressed.
Well, I thought I'd get it out the way.
Yes.
Because it's kind of the elephant in the room. Because with gamers, whenever you mention American football, everybody immediately thinks Blood Bowl.
Yes.
And it's like, yeah, okay, yes, it was an attempt at some sort of bringing some form of American football into the gaming realm, but it's not American football, is it?
No, I've followed American football since the 80s and been very heavily involved in it. And I've been involved in gaming since the 80s. And Blood Bowl's always had this thing where it has the trappings of American football, but when you actually play it, and I play it a lot, it plays more like a game of rugby where the players don't know the rules.
That's a great description. I like that. Well, and you mentioned you've been gaming since the 80s, and of course, anybody who listens to the show on a regular basis will know that when we get a guest on for the first time, the first thing we do before we go any further is to find out what their gaming credentials are and how long they've been gaming for. So, Andrew, how on earth did you get into the gaming hobby?
Well, it actually started with Dungeons and Dragons right back in the 70s. Which is showing my age. And
so this would be Redbox edition?
Yeah, the basic game. Yeah, that one.
Yes.
So, and we played that at primary school. And then we picked up playing. Now, I life of me don't know what rules we used, but we used to then do airfix tank warfare, sort of wargaming with the tanks, the World War II ones.
Yeah.
And then from there, I just picked up the bug, started going to role playing and gaming clubs where I lived, and then by the 80s, I was trying to slip out of school so I could run off to Games Day when it was in West London in those days.
Oh, cool. So you were into Games Workshop stuff and this, that, and the other?
Yeah, I was very, very heavily into Warhammer and 40k. I used to run the school club for that, and then I also got into other games, mainly Blood Bowl, which has become my gaming love over the years, and along with other sports miniature games that I've played, and I carried those on. Now I went through a brief period where I actually took up real American football, a brief period meaning 20 years, which we can get onto in a minute. But at the time, I stopped playing so much, and then eventually I came back into gaming when I moved to Chelmsford and had to finally give up playing.
Cool. So what have you been gaming more recently then?
Oh, lots of different things. I've played a lot of Guild Ball. It's very popular at the Chelmsford Bunker.
Cross off the other elephant in the room.
Yeah, no, I'm good at this. Which is a skirmish game with an element of sport and some amazing game mechanics. I've got to give Matt his dues there. The game mechanics in Guild Ball are fantastic, and the miniatures are amazing. So I really enjoy playing Guild Ball. And also, I play Shadespire at the moment. Games Workshop.
Cool, yeah.
Which I think is a wonderful, quick gateway game for miniatures. I adore it, actually. And I've noticed it's really taken off in our area. Lots of people playing it.
I'm having a sideways look at it because, as I say, it's one of these things that Games Workshop has kind of been in a sort of renaissance over the past year or so, hasn't it? They've them going back and saying, right, okay, we're going to do more boxed games and this, that, and the other. They're kind of slight change in direction. They certainly seem to be ticking a lot more boxes.
Yes, and I think, like Star Wars, they've realised there are a lot of 40-something people with disposable income to fleece. So in the last year, I've bought Blood Bowl again. Not that I didn't already own it. And I also bought the Necromunda set when it came out over Christmas.
I'm in two minds with Necromunda because it's like it was my go-to game when it first came out, and I was a huge Necromunda fan, and I'm looking at it now, kind of thinking, do I or don't I? You know, I'm kind of on the cusp.
That was one of those. My two best gaming friends bought it, and at that point, you're kind of dragged down. So,
indeed,
if I don't buy it, I'm going to spend Wednesday evenings lonely for a month or two. So.
Can't you just use their rules and figures?
Oh no, but you got to paint your own figures. I'm really big on that. I love having my own figures. I'd never like playing miniature games with somebody else's.
It's a man after my own heart. So talking of sports games then, I mean, did you ever dabble in Dreadball?
Dreadball, yes. I've just received last week the Dreadball 2 Kickstarter. I bought the rule book to keep me updated. I have a huge box full of Dreadball stuff. We did run a Dreadball League at Chelmsford, and I was sad that we didn't run it again. It was a lot of fun. I think Dreadball plays... I love summing these games up, but Dreadball plays like futuristic basketball, and if you take it as that, it's a lot of fun.
Yes.
It's somewhere between that and ice hockey, isn't it?
Yeah, ice hockey's another one. But it has that sort of scoring of basketball, and ice hockey, I suppose, where you go up one end, you score, you come back the other end, you score. It's quite hard to stop people scoring. So actually the game becomes, can you stop them scoring once so that you can then get ahead? Again,
as far as sports games are concerned, I kind of, I suppose we're covering off like a lot of the ones that kind of people know. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because over the years, there have been a few miniature sports games, but actually not that many.
No, and I've got one going all the way back to the 80s, an American football game, miniatures game. But the name's gone out of my head. But what was interesting or not so interesting about that is I actually thought, well, somebody's already done an American football miniatures game. But when you tried to play it, it was almost unplayable. It was like about 100 charts and tables. So it actually wasn't a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, this is it because I suppose it's again because it's always one of these things that it's always seemed that, and again, this is one of these things from a sport point of view. There seems to be, I suppose, especially depending on the audience, a bit of a disconnect with the sport, isn't it? Because of its stop-start nature,
Yeah.
and the fact that actually it's incredibly technical. There is, I suppose, always that.
Well, if I could pick up on the technical sport bit without
Yeah.
diving and interrupting, I found it really interesting that in America, American football is the jock sort of sport. It's the national sport. People love it. They all support it, like we do with football, soccer over here. Okay, but in the UK, fans of American football tend to be more geeky because they're people who actually are drawn to it because of its technicalities and the tactical side of it.
That's something I never really thought about.
So I know at my gamer club, if you asked what people's sport they followed, the majority actually follow American football more than they follow football these days.
Yeah. That's really interesting.
But interestingly, despite the sort of jock perception, it's quite interesting where the highest average IQ for a position in American football is. It's the offensive line.
Oh, got to learn all those blocking assignments.
Apparently, yes. Apparently, it's the learning all those blocking strategies. But apparently, all of them generally are straight A students and major geeks.
Also, offensive line aren't getting hit in the head so much.
This is true.
They're the ones doing the hitting to people.
Yes, that's quite true. Okay, so that's some of your gaming credentials.
Sure.
Now, obviously, we started talking on the fact of American football is in some way sort of a technical sport, and you mentioned the fact that you had a slight 20-year diversion in actually playing.
Yes.
Okay, so from your American football point of view, what's your background in that then?
Right. Well, right back in the 80s, my sister got a scholarship to go to America for a year and started sending me San Francisco 49ers paraphernalia. So I got pennants and stuff through the door because she lived in Sacramento, just along from the bay. When I went to university, I had never really played a lot of sport, a bit of hockey, but I really was looking for something new. And there were some guys all dressed up in American football kit promoting the university team, the UEA Pirates. So I signed up there and then played for 10 years there. Got to the national final once. Actually became okay at something in American football by the time I finished. I'm not going to say I was a very good player, but by the end of it, I could block like anything. So I was a blocking tight end. I used to rumble on first down, and if we didn't make 5 yards, then I would rumble off again, and someone who could catch would come on in my place.
All right, so you were tough. You were a tough tight end, really.
Yeah, no, I'm just good at blocking. I've never described myself as tough. My wife would laugh at that because I scream if I bang my toe, but I was more just the fact that if you've met me, I'm very, very short. I'm 5'3", but I weighed about 16 and a half stone of muscle when I was playing. It's all fat now, but when I played, so basically I won the sumo battle generally because I was right underneath people.
Okay,
you'd have enjoyed Sunday's game with the Vikings. Then they were playing an offensive lineman as a tackle eligible tight end for half the plays.
Oh, excellent! Unless they were hoping for him to catch something, because that's
no. I think their idea was just to generate more blocking on that side and spare Kyle Rudolph, who was a bit injured.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, something that my team worked out was we just got more yards when I was on the pitch than when I wasn't, even though it didn't seem to make a lot of sense. It's just if you add that extra block on the outside, just so many more runs break. So,
yeah. Although, if you mentioned to the average American that you were playing tight end at 5'3",
they would have a laugh.
Indeed, they would.
Yeah. I didn't, but this is British. Do you know? Did you see the Giants game when they came to Wembley the first time, and it was pouring with rain, and the pitch cut up terribly. And what made me absolutely laugh is a lot of the Americans who came to play in Britain and played in the University League with me, they were always moaning that we ran high and we just did dive plays and off tackle runs and things. It was just all the time. And we said it's because of our pitch. You can't, if it's raining in December and you're on the rugby thirds pitch or something, that's all you're going to be able to do. And the Giants came to Wembley, and it still makes me laugh. They came to Wembley, and by the third quarter, what were they doing? They were just running high and giving it to the fullback on dives. just because it was so muddy, they didn't even want their running backs to try and take a step left or right. It was just go forwards.
For those listeners whose eyes haven't glazed over yet, we should note that the average height of a tight end in the NFL is 6'3".
Yeah. So that was my playing career, and then
Cool.
I coached for 10 years in this country. I actually helped start the University of Essex team. Well, I started it, and then I then went and started a team at the Anglia Ruskin University.
Cool.
And I was head coach there for about 6 or 7 years. And I was even worse at being a head coach than I was at catching footballs. So I finally retired from the sport after 20 years.
But fair to say, having been in the sport for 20 years, you have a bit of an inkling of what you're talking about.
Oh, yeah, I would like to say I have. Yes. Just don't have Nick Saban on as a guest or something, and otherwise I'm in trouble.
I mean, as regular listeners of the show will know, as I say, you will hear myself and Mr. Whittaker trading comments about 49ers and Vikings from time to time, and so you might have picked up the fact that we're both American football fans ourselves.
Has been a bit like shooting a fish in a barrel until the last month or so.
Yeah, it has.
Oh!
I coached youth team for a year in Leicester. My son played for Leicester Falcons for a couple of years.
Okay.
So I find it really interesting, and we'll come on to this because, especially when you start looking at the reduced number of players, because in the UK, in the contact under 17s and under 19s, under 17s play 5 aside, and under 19s play, well, depending, they tend to either play 8 aside or 9 aside.
Sure.
So it's really interesting looking at coming from a point of having coached that for a year and then seeing that appear in play format on in fourth quarter football, which is something we will obviously come on to in the very near future.
I'm going to say I'm not an American salesperson, am I? Because we've got this far before anybody's mentioned the name of the game.
Indeed.
I haven't been stuffing it into Dreadball isn't like fourth quarter football, but I haven't been managing to do that yet.
Well, I'm sure we'll get you a few mentions in the preamble we haven't recorded yet.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
Indeed. So yes. Having got almost 20 minutes into the interview before mentioning the name of the game too much, let's now concentrate on this a little bit more, which is the reason we have Andrew on the show. Now, fourth quarter football, which was as Andrew said, I first saw at the UK Games Expo when myself and Andrew played a game, and I immediately fell in love with it.
Thank you.
It is currently on Kickstarter, having eventually made Kickstarter. Yes, was launched on Boxing Day, and we will come into all the details of that in a minute. But before we get onto the nitty gritty, so at what point did you decide I'm going to make an American football game, and then how did you go about developing it?
Right. I think from the moment I first went to Games Day in 1980 something, and Jervis Johnson was there, and they had the very first edition of Blood Bowl, and I was so excited, and I bought it, and then I went over to him explaining the rules, and we did a demo game where he explained the rules to a couple of us, and it wasn't like American football at all. I suppose I've had a bit in my head going, I'd really like to design a game that's much more like American football. So It's been going that long. It's always in my head. And my wife moans at me because I'm not the sort of person who writes things down a lot, but I was always muttering about it. And it went away for a long time. But I played Dreadball, I played Guild Ball, I played Blood Bowl, and I love them all. I play them. I've gone out to tournaments for 2 of those 3 games. But it wasn't American football. And the thing that was missing for me was that play calling. Because I know when you're watching American football or if you're playing Madden, what's really one of the vital parts of the game is that ability to choose plays. So I thought I would start designing a miniature game that really had the proper feel of American football, had the downs, had the play calling. But I wanted to make it a game that was fun to play.
Yeah.
So that didn't take 5 hours and a book full of charts to complete.
But 5 hours, that's standard length for an American football game, is it not?
Well, actually, funny enough, if you played amateur American football, it goes so much quicker without the adverts.
Indeed it does, yes.
Yeah, but it can be a long game. So the idea was when we started designing it, the brief was for it to feel like American football, to have that exciting moments, the big pass, the jinking through the runs, but actually play quick, play actually so that people can get a game done in an hour and a half. So what we did was we focused the game on the 4th quarter. So the idea that there's 2 teams, they're locked in battle, the score is really close, and that now every decision is going to count. But that also meant you were reducing down the number of plays that you were going to ask each coach to call. So you're only looking at 15 plays in the 4th quarter.
Right. Okay. I mean, because obviously, the old adage is you certainly can't win a game of American football in the first 3 quarters, but you can definitely lose it.
Yes.
So, but yes, as you say, the vast majority of the classic games always come down to some form of very tight 4th quarter, don't they? Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. My big memory of the 80s was watching Joe Montana do the drive.
Oh,
yeah. And he marched his team in the 4th quarter down, all the way down, and scored through the winning touchdown like a minute ago.
Wasn't that Elway?
No.
Because Elway did it as well, at least once.
But,
Elway was well known for it, but yes, it was. No, the Montana one is a classic.
If you're a 49ers fan,
yeah, it also sealed his kind of team of the 80s kind of mantle and things like that at the same time. But I was sitting up at whatever time in the morning in front of my tiny little television as a kid and as a teenager, and that was like, oh my, that's exactly the kind of that moment, that kind of you have to make the plays and there is no coming back from this. There's no, oh, I've made a bad call, but it's okay because we've got another 3 quarters. It's if a bad call or something horrible happens, it's going to feel gut wrenching.
And for God's sake, don't miss the field goal.
Yeah.
Blow off.
Hit the uprights after your tip.
Funnily enough, sorry, I was just looking at. Funnily enough, yes, that was the first Super Bowl I watched. And if you don't know what we're talking about, okay, it's Super Bowl 23.
Oh, well done! I've never remembered numbers.
It's Super Bowl 23 when the 49ers beat Boomer Esiason and the Cincinnati Bengals. And yes, 2016.
But it was known as the drive, the last drive of the game. So and it's sort of stood out as a major American sporting point, and that was my starting point for the game. Let's isolate those last drives in the 4th quarter, make the game fast moving. So we play tested, and the game works at 11 aside, but it takes longer. And you need a better understanding of American football than we wanted people to have to get into the game. So what we've decided is we've launched at 7 aside with the that allows us to sell at a price that people can actually afford. It plays amazingly at that side. I would prefer to play at that side, but we have plans later on to allow people who, once they've really got into the game, we'll try and release some extra players so they can play it, and plays to let them play at 11 aside.
Cool. I mean, interestingly, actually, talking from a youth football point of view, when they were discussing how many players to play a side, when they started looking at, okay, if you once you get to like 8 aside, they say, well, okay, at 8 aside, you start giving a slight advantage to the offense because on 8 aside, you get a tight end involved in the line.
Yeah.
Whereas if you play 7-a-side, usually you don't involve a tight end. So it does start to change tactically how things work. So it's really interesting you say 7-a-side is actually an interesting balance.
It is. It's fun, and it encourages the passing game. And I'll stand right here is that people who are not fanatical about American football really see the passing game as what makes American football unique and exciting. Now, I'm a hardcore fan. I've used to get videos of college teams sent to me by DVD so I could watch teams that just like doing the running game, the option game and stuff like this. But actually, for the casual fan, passing game is important. So we've started by developing the game skewed slightly towards the passing game, and 7-a-side helps that.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so that's kind of where the inception of the game has come from and what you're aiming at. Okay,
Sure.
Probably best. What do you think? If we look at going through, okay, what's involved with 7-a-side, and then go through how the mechanics of how the game actually works.
Sure, absolutely. So on 7-a-side, you have an offense who are trying to score, and that's made up of 3 big burly linemen. Your quarterback, who's your general, your captain, the guy who's in charge, who's going to be throwing the ball. 2 receivers, who we give different names to in our game. We give the technical names for them, the flanker and the split end, and they're the guys who are going to be running down the field trying to catch the ball. Although in our game, they're 2 very different players. One is a tall, rangy guy who's really fast and can get downfield, and the flanker is a much smaller guy, but he's willing to catch it over the middle and get clobbered and just get up and dust himself off, but he's not as fast. And then you have a running back whose job is to just be handed the ball and then try and weave his way through the defense to score. You then have a defense made up of a couple of big burly D tackles whose job is to not be pushed around, and then 2 linebackers who are your tackling machines, and then 3 defensive backs who are there to stop the pass. So they're fast guys, but they're not so good at tackling.
Right. Oh, yeah. Sorry. I know a few safeties who might argue about that.
Yeah, but there is now a safety figure. We passed we haven't got onto the Kickstarter, but we passed the stretch goal, and we now have a safety figure in the game. So, who's better at tackling?
And we'll get robbed of a Pro Bowl slot, of course. Not bitter.
That's not heartfelt at all, is it?
Well, the fact that he's not going to be at the Pro Bowl because he's going to be at the Super Bowl is neither here nor there, really. But
so the game's played out with miniatures. So we have the miniatures for that. They're 32mm scale, so they are compatible with other fantasy football games. I'll slip that one in. And we play the game out on a board that's marked out just like an American football field, the gridiron. And it's broken up into passing zones. So there are rectangles all over it, but when you look at it, you'll see an American football pitch, all the normal things, a goalpost, the lot. And the object of the game is to score, using the 4 downs, which means you get 4 attempts to move the ball 10 yards. If you don't, you've got to give it to your opponent. But it's the 4th quarter, so people are getting tired, and there are mechanics to replicate all those mistakes that can happen.
So when you say an American football field, I mean, is that a full 100-yard field?
It's marked out as a full 100-yard pitch, yeah.
Okay, cool.
I've had enough discussions about why we chose 7-a-side not to want to discuss a different size pitch.
wise move.
Okay, so it's 7-a-side, full-size pitch.
Yep.
You're actually playing downs, which again immediately separates us from one of the other elephants in the room.
Yes, because there is no just find a cage and try and drive your way through in this game. The idea is that you're going to have to beat your opponent by your play calling, as well as how well you can run the miniatures and consider the tactics once they actually try and execute the play. So this game mixes in an element of deck preparation as well, because players will select 15 plays that they want to run in the 4th quarter. And that's made up of run plays, pass plays, and trick plays. Those sort of ones that make the crowd go, woo-hoo. And the coaches make those decks up, but they have to then draw cards every turn. So you draw 2 cards to make a deck of hand of 3 cards, and then those are the 3 plays you can select from each time. So there is an element of that frustration sometimes that the plays you really want to run aren't being offered to you.
Right.
So you're on third down and 3, but all you've got in your hand is passing plays, because that makes a game. That's part of the fun of a game, is those moments when you have to start thinking really tactically and how you're going to get yourself out of a problem. And then the plays are played out on the pitch. So the cards show you what you're meant to do on the pitch, like you're selecting a play on Madden, though not in the same way, if any lawyers are listening. And then when you're executing on the pitch, you start playing it like a sports miniature game. So there are dice roll successes for doing different actions. But the real difference with the game is improvisation is discouraged. So there is a minus to dice rolls if you don't follow the play. Because, in real American football, if you're a lineman and you're blocking for a running back, you block assuming he's going where you were told he was going to go.
Yes.
So if he then just takes the ball and runs off in the opposite direction, that might seem good to someone, but actually in real American football, what would happen is he would get horribly tackled.
And
9 times out of 10.
Yeah, and conversely, if you don't follow the route that you previously discussed with your quarterback, you'll get hit on the back of the head with the ball.
Yeah, or worse, he will throw it on a timing pattern to a big area of space where there might be a safety just hanging around, waiting for it to catch it and intercept it. So the game rewards players for doing what they're meant to do on the play card. Now, you can improvise, but as soon as you do that, you know you're in trouble with the dice, because there's going to be a minus to all your dice rolls.
Oh, cool! I like that. I have to go. But I have to go back and pick up on your comment about third and three, and all you've got all you've got is pass plays, and basically say. So at that point, you become a Seahawks fan from Super Bowl 2 years ago. but
But that's the thing. Those I should have called the other play moments as something I want in a game. This would have been great. But because when you call the plays, you lay them down on the pitch on a space. Sorry, I said pitch. That's a real habit of a British player, which American fans have moaned at me about. So I'm trying to avoid saying it so much these days. If you lay on the board, you lay the card down you've called. And it's like Texas Hold'em. Your opponent, your defensive player's key to winning the game is trying to know what that card is. If they can make a good guess, and if they can set up a defense to stop that play, it's going to make your life so much harder.
Oh, right. So the offense is calling plays, but the defense is not calling plays. They're kind of more reacting to what the offense is doing.
Yeah, we found it's a miserable enough life being the defense anyway, especially in modern football rules, because you're not allowed to do anything anymore for the safety of players and for the passing. So what we do is we have the defense. Every turn, the offense calls a play. They lay it down. They call an audible play, which is their second choice. Like if the first play doesn't look like it's going to work, but then the defense, and then they set up their players, and then the defense sets up after that. So they look at what the offense have set up, and they're also, if they're smart, card counting. If they know what the plays that the offense have and they know what they've already used, they can start thinking what the probability is of the play that's going to be under that play deck. And then they set up, and then the play is executed. So if you think it's a run play and you've stacked all your guys up on the line, then it's just going to be tough for the offense.
So you call the play.
Yeah.
And then the play kind of happens in 2 phases, doesn't it?
It does. I'm glad you mentioned that. I think this is a sort of unique way the game plays out to make it feel like American football. The first phase of movement is what we call the first 3 steps. So they're the thing that the coach will have drilled into all the players. You will go here, you will do that. And for the first couple of steps, you can't do anything as a player, but just in your head do what you've been told to do. And then the defense also moves all its players, and at the same time, you also at that point we start with the line, the offensive line, roll for success based on their skill, either pass blocking or run blocking, and the defense, once it starts moving, will know which of its front line have been picked up. We call it engaged, which means taken out of the play, so they're not going to be able to do anything. So the defense already knows that, and then it moves all its players. But the problem with American football, if you try and play it like Blood Bowl, you end up worrying about what the wide receiver on the left is doing on a sweep right. And you're moving all these pieces, but actually so many of them are nothing to do with the play once it really gets going. So what we do is we then, after all the players have moved a short amount of movement, those first 3 steps, we then go to a back and forwards. The offense moves a player and the defense then reacts to it by moving a player. And we call that sort of the highlight reel, that moment when the camera focuses in on the action, on what's actually happening.
Oh, right. So it becomes an alternate model activation,
yes,
as opposed to more of an I go, you go, whole team sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Now, the one thing that, as a defensive coach, the only thing you know is whether it's a run or a pass play.
Yes. At the start of the play being executed on the pitch, that first phase, the offensive coach has to announce whether it's a pass or a run. He does not have to show what the play is, but the defense in real American football would be able to see what was happening by how the offensive line are moving. Because if they drop back, it's pass protection. If they come firing forward, it's a run.
Do you handle play action and draw plays in that?
We do. Those are those trick plays I was telling you about. Now, you're only allowed 2 trick plays in your deck, because otherwise the game could get really silly. So to keep some kind of realistic element, we say you've got 2 trick plays in your deck, and one of the ones available is a play action pass, which is where you start the play, you announce it's a run, you do your first phase as if it's a run, and then suddenly when you get to the second phase, you flip the card and go, no, it's a pass. At which point the defensive coach, unless they've been really smart, generally goes, because they know they've messed up.
The second phase of the game, it's very much alternate player activation, and it's at that point where everything becomes about that's where the kind of real kind of tactical miniatures play comes in, doesn't it?
Yes, and the thing we made, I think, was real breakthrough for us with the passing is that we broke the game field down into zones. And so a play doesn't say to go to a specific square, it says to go to a specific zone. And the players all have bonuses depending on where they're good at catching the ball. So the shorter of the 2 receivers is much better at catching the ball in short slants and things like that. So he gets a bonus for that. And the play itself on the play card within each zone will tell you who is allowed to catch the ball in that zone and what bonus they will get for doing it. So on a slants play, you'll get the 2 receivers are aiming for the middle, and they're getting bonuses if they reach those middle zones. And that includes a lot of tactics then, because you're trying to choose plays that work for your players, because there's 2 teams in the game, the Northfield Pirates and the Hurricanes, and those 2 teams have slightly different abilities. Your quarterbacks are all slightly different. So if you have a right-handed quarterback who likes to throw medium passes, he gets good bonuses for that. But if he's trying to throw it deep, he's not. And all these things come in because what makes a great pass, or what makes a pass and a good catch, is a combination of the route being in the right place, who's covering the receiver, whether they're good at catching in that area, because there's lots of receivers don't like to catch if they're going to get hit by a linebacker, and how good the quarterback is throwing that. And you take all those pluses and minuses and you throw them together onto one dice roll.
Right. Okay. So as far as zones are concerned, I'm trying to remember. So is the pitch? So effectively, okay. If you think beyond the line of scrimmage, is the board divided effectively into like 6 or 9?
It's divide each. Actually, you know what? I'm just pulling up the diagram because I don't want to misanswer this question. You'd think I'd know it off the top of my head. I sort of do, but I just want to check. The pitch is broken up into rectangles that are 4 across the pitch. And then they each represent 10 yards. So there are 40 of them across the entire game field.
Cool.
So, but each card, all the play cards and all the players have 16 of those zones shown on their card, and those are the ones from the line of scrimmage are out. So because the average catch in the NFL and in other American football leagues is a lot lower than you would actually think.
Yeah,
it's like 5 to 8 yards or something.
Yeah.
So
it's good. It's good old West Coast offense.
Yes, yeah. Everybody's just thinking it off to the running back all the time. But even the good receivers don't have yards at catch as far as you would think. They really don't. They're doing well if they make 10 yards at that.
Yeah.
So
it's the yards after catch that make the difference, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So the whole game comes down to trying to get the right people in the right place, hoping that the defense has not actually read what you're doing and have people waiting in the zone for you, or if they are covering you, because defensive players can try and cover you, which is a mechanic where if they've succeeded on a cover roll, they just follow you wherever you go.
Right. Okay. And obviously, if you happen to be, is it adjacent to a player, that starts introducing negatives and various other bits and pieces? Yeah.
Absolutely, because it's really difficult to catch if you're in the NFL if you're properly covered. You know, that's why you have these corners who are just sort of shut down corners. You know, they take the whole side of the pitch out almost.
Cool. So that covers play calling and generally the way the offense works.
Yeah.
Before we get on to the whole thing about teams, because that obviously sounds fairly key, you've got the board divided up into 10 yards and you have a number of plays to make 10 yards. Okay. Which is just like the real thing. So assuming then that there is the potential for you to do 3 and out or 4 and out. I mean, so is there a kicking game involved at all?
Right, there are rules for the kicking game. They are quite simple. So
yes.
If you punt, we will literally place the ball on the 30-yard line of your opponent. So that he can start his drive. So we're not trying to make them complicated. There is a field goal option where you go to, which is just a skill against your kicking skill that your team has, but it's a 2d6 roll. We haven't made a lot of the kicking game and the special teams because that would need a whole new set of figures if we were going to make it look realistic, and also we don't want to alienate people who, very few casual fans really understand what the punt is about.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to be implementing that. One of the things about the game is that you're trying to run the clock down as well as score points. So you want to run as many plays as you can, so your opponent gets less plays. But every time you run a play, there's a chance that it's going to go horrendously wrong. And you're going to end up with a fumble or an interception, and you're going to have given your opponent good field position. So the game's a trade-off all the time between, do you go for the jugular and try and score quick, or do you try and take some time off the clock to put your opponent under pressure? But to start, because we realised, this is coming back to the kicking game, by the way, because we realised in game development that there is an advantage to starting first. The bump for the game is that it's just started the fourth quarter, but the end of the third quarter was the team on defense kicking a field goal to go 21-20 up.
Right, okay.
So they start 1 point up. And that means the opponent in the offense has to realize that if he messes his drive up, despite going first, he's going to be in real trouble.
Right. Okay, so we have... So basically, it's 15. We have 15 plays, which is the entire game.
Yes.
Right.
And
okay.
that's again to keep it moving fast, and it's not plays each, so it's not 15 plays for you and 15 plays for me, like other well-known fantasy football games. It's It's 15 plays in total.
Cool. Okay, so you mentioned them already. So how do you handle fumbles, sacks, and interceptions?
Right. Every time you make in the game, you make a skill roll, which is every time you try and make the pass, or if you try and jink around somebody, you make a skill roll, or if you try and make a tackle. That's all done on a 2d6 mechanic against a set score that your player has. So if your player was a 7 skill for tackling, then you would roll 2d6, and if you make 7 or above, you have made the tackle. But if you make 4 or more than your base skill, then something excellent happens. You've made a great play. So in the case of a tackle, you push the guy back 5 yards, slam him into the dirt. In case of a catch, you've actually got some yards between you and the person covering you, so you're allowed to make an extra square movement. Conversely, if you get -4 from your score or more, so if you got a 3 or less on the 2d6, if your skill was 7, you have something bad happen. Now, that's a minor bad thing, but if you get a double one, you get the spectacularly bad things happening, which are such like fumbles. Now, what we do with fumbles is the player who fumbled it, from him and out, we count the nearest players, and each player then gets to roll until one of them has actually secured the ball. So we look at the play. Well, because the guy actually drops it, it's got the chance to just fall on it, and you see that a lot. Especially quarterbacks fall on it, and then we just measure out from there. So we say the person with the best hand skill, who's 2 scares away, is that player. So he then gets to roll for it. So fumbles in the backfield, if the defense aren't trying to put any pressure on you, will probably be recovered. Right.
Yes.
But a fumble by your running back when he's weaving through the defensive line and the linebackers, chances are it's going to be them who end up picking it up. Now, interceptions are done in a very similar way. They're measured out from the player who was the target. And each player then, except he's not allowed to make the roll because he was given his chance to catch it and he's messed it. And then we allow, but this is only if it was 4 less than the target score. So most passes just go incomplete, which is exactly what happens in the real game. But if you make a bad failure, or if you make a critical failure, you're then in a situation where other players around might be able to catch it.
Okay.
You said all plays are the same duration, effectively. Does that mean you don't do things like stop the clock on incompletions or receivers going out of bounds?
No, we're still trying to play a board game.
Right.
I'm still horribly aware that there are people going to be playing this who are not massive American football fans. We've play tested it with people who are wearing an NFL jersey and are really keen on the game, but when you play it, you discover they're really interested in the game, but because they haven't grown up watching it, they don't always know some of the things that you would know tactics-wise if you've studied the game and followed it. So we're trying not to confuse people. I went through a phase of trying to make it so the pass plays were only half a minute and things like this, but it all just made the game not flow as well. So there are always, I think when you do a game like this, there's always got to be some game simplifications, just to make it a fun experience.
You're not wanting to make this game full of charts, 3 hours long, and what have you, because it is. There are compromises that you have to make to ensure that the game flows.
And there are some incredibly tactical things in it, though. I think especially playing defense, you are allowed to see all the plays your opponent is planning to run apart from the trick plays. So as the game goes on, the player, as he's calling plays, has to discard those cards. So if you've got a good mind for how to card count, you're in a much better position to know what your opponent's trying to do near the end of the game.
Right, okay. So are you limited? So you say, okay, you have to choose 15 plays.
Yeah.
How many play cards are there actually?
There are 40 play cards in the box. Split into 2 decks of 15 ready to go, because we want to introduce people to the game, and we want to introduce people to our 2 themed teams, the Pirates and the Hurricanes, who play in very slightly different ways. The Pirates are a passing team first and foremost, and their running game is very simplified. While the Hurricanes are also a passing team, but they don't have maybe such as good receivers, but they have a better running plays. They have more interesting misdirections and crosses for their running plays.
Cool. Okay, one last thing before we get onto the teams. One last thing regarding interceptions, which is always it's always the big play that people like. Is it possible to return an interception?
Yes, but it's really hard. Just really, because we start drives on the 30 rather than having a kickoff. It's very rare in playtesting. It doesn't happen very often, but you can do it.
Right. Okay, but things like throwing a pick six is possible.
Is possible, but it's because of where you catch it and the fact that when we said we alternate players, no player can be activated twice. Can't be activated consecutively. So you activate a player, you then have to activate another of your players before you can go back and activate that player. Which means anyone who's got the ball, the chances are there are two players going to have a hit at them before they get to do anything again. And but that's like real American football. You know, if you're going to make it if you're going to make distance across the middle, you're going to have to survive somebody trying to batter you, you know. And but if you're further out, if you've caught a pass deep, then the cornerback tries to tackle you, but then there's no one else there, so the defensive coach has to move a linebacker and they can't catch up.
Okay, cool. So how do you handle change of possession, especially when you in the base game you only have one offense and one defense set of models?
Change of possession is just swapping the models around. I didn't feel the need to put the price up too high. We're using resin high quality miniatures molded in the UK. I'm not sending this game off to China to be knocked out cheap. I wanted high quality stuff that was under my control, especially for the Kickstarter. So we went at a price point that allows you to play the game. Now the offense and defense come unpainted and needing assembly like most games in miniature games, but they're in different color resins. So you can play the game as soon as you've assembled the figures, because the defense are in one shade, the offense are in another. And then when you've changed, because those players are never on the pitch at the same time, the idea that we would charge people more, but actually they didn't need those figures, didn't seem right. So we run it that you would just swap around the figures and start again.
Cool. Okay. And obviously we'll come on to other options shortly.
Sure.
Right. Okay. So we've gone through all the basics on, okay, this is essentially how the game works. The one thing that's cropped up several times is teams. And some players are better at catching than others, some players are better at running, etc. So, how is that defined?
Right, well, players have different skills. They have the catching skill, they have a speed skill, speed attribute, they have a blocking skill, tackling skill. And their ability to catch in different areas, though, is defined by our 16 grid passing zone that we show on every card. Every card in the game has got it. So although it seems like a slightly abstract thing the first time you see it, and a lot of people have to turn the card sideways to look at it so it's the same way as the pitch. But once you've got that cards, you've got that in your head, each zone has a score for a player, so it just changes their ability to catch in different areas. So if it has a +3, that means they are very good at catching in that zone. If it has a -4, then that's not somewhere they normally go to catch the ball. It's not somewhere they're comfortable with. Defensive players also have those zones. Everybody does, because actually everyone's trying to stop the pass play. But then other skills such as tackling, you're given a skill between 4 and sort of 9 or 10. But somebody who's got a skill of 10, that's not actually a good thing, because that's the amount they have to roll on 2d6 to succeed. So, for instance, the middle linebacker has a tackling score of 5. So if he gets to someone, he's very likely to make the tackle.
Yeah. So you mentioned the Pirates and the Hurricanes, as the two different base teams that come in the box.
Yeah.
So these are kind of predefined teams that are come ready to play.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So, what happens if you don't want to play with those two teams?
Okay. Firstly, the idea was to give the teams a theme so that they matched the plays in the playbooks, so people could get an idea of the game and the enjoyment of doing it. And in the same way that in other fantasy football games, I know Dreadball has things like the Trontex 69ers and stuff like this. They're willing to skirt NFL much more than I am with their names. So the idea is that if you wanted to play your own team, you can paint these models up any way you like. And that's one of the fun things about the game is, if you've got a favorite team and you want to paint it up like that, then no one's stopping you. And you can also design the playbook to match the play style of the team that you have chosen. Now, there are 40 play cards in the book. There are different ways of playing the game, actually. You can play it that if you have... if it's your game and you're going to play people in the league, then you've got a choice of 15 plays out of those 40. So you can really go to town in making it more like the team you like. On top of that, you could also maybe play a draft so that you choose a play, your opponent chooses a play. Which is a fun way of doing it that we've trialed out a couple of times. And then on top of that, there are other figures that are being released, many of them in the stretch goal that have gone with a Kickstarter. Now, those players have different attributes, but there's also usually play cards. If they're on offense, there are also play cards that come with them that make use of them. So we've got a tight end figure already unlocked. We've got some tight end cards. So we've got tight end short passing game. We've got a tight end reverse as a trick play. And those all you can go in the deck if you want to use that player.
Okay, cool. Okay, so you got a tight end, so you'll have one tight end defined for the Pirates, one defined for the Hurricanes.
Oh, there are some. Right, there are other. Okay.
How do you build your own teams?
Okay, there are.
Or can you?
Yeah, there are rules for team development. Now, when you get to that point in the rulebook where we are developing this and play testing at the moment, so I don't want to go into huge detail and then be quoted out of context later. But we are putting in rules for league play and for player development, because there's also a lot of skills which aren't used in the base game. You get that kind of player who's just got an amazing skill. I think even nose tackle, Jim Burt, who used to play for the Giants, he used to be great at doing spin moves from nose tackle, unbelievably. So he would, and so like other games of this genre, your players will develop as the season goes on, and you'll be able to gain access to different skills. You'll also be able to change attributes slightly, so there'll be different options for D-tackles, so fast D-tackle, a D-tackle who's not so fast but is very, very hard to block, that sort of thing already. So those options are going to be there in the rule book for you to develop your own team. I think that's really fun. There's two stages to a game, really. There's that getting it out of the box and playing it, and we want that to be a gateway game, fun experience. And then there's that serious gamer thing of wanting to see your team develop. But as an owner, you're going to have to worry about things like the salary cap, and also players getting injuries and such like, which we'll detail out in the rules.
Oh, cool. So it's not just going to be a simple, it's a head-to-head. You can play it as a full campaign or season, what have you.
Yes, and we have plans. Obviously, as a small company who's starting off, we want to get the game out there so people can play it. But our real interest was in having different kinds of American football teams play against each other. So for that, we introduced the Historical Football League. And the idea here is, rather than having figures always dressed in modern American football attire, we've got initial sketches, and we've been working on this, and like a team from the 70s. So you've got guys who are sort of covered in mud, wearing cowboy collars, with the sort of 1970s face cages, and those teams will have a totally different playbook. So a lot of their plays will be a lot more hard-nosed, but they're not a West Coast team. So the zones for the grid for passing, they will not be as good at that. And then we wanted to have an 80s West Coast team, so a lot of jink, small passing, that sort of San Francisco 49ers always drop.
I can't say, because you've got to have an 80s West Coast team.
Yeah, because it's 2.9 fans. That was going to happen. So absolutely. And but then also we even have diagrammed up and we're starting to look at sort of a 1930s team. So some college teams and high school teams in the States still come out in single wing against people. And so as the game goes on, those teams have totally different play styles. So we'll release cards and we'll develop the modern playing game, but there'll also be the option of buying teams with a completely different way of playing.
Oh, cool. So lots of plans for the future then.
Well, I think we're in a position now this week to actually start really talking about the game in the future.
All right, so there's a Kickstarter then.
Is this you've made the substitution, haven't you?
Yeah.
I should substitute now as well as the defense and react to that. But I don't think sticking my son on will get the result I want. So
no, I very much doubt it. So Kickstarter, tell us about the Kickstarter.
Right. Well, I originally, when I spoke to Neil, we were talking about kickstarting in the autumn, but we've now just launched on Kickstarter in December. The reason is I was adamant that I wanted not to be like other Kickstarters. I wanted to have the figures finished before the Kickstarter kicked off. So I have a garage full of figures that have already been molded for the base game, so that then I knew this wasn't going to be one of those Kickstarters that you pay your money and then you don't see anything for 2 years.
Right.
So we launched on Boxing Day, which seemed like a really good idea at the time, but since people have said to me that was a mad day to launch, but it was when I wanted to. I really was thinking about the end time, because the Kickstarter finishes on February the 5th, sort of day after the Super Bowl. And
that is a classic piece of time. Taking out a Super Bowl ad then, are we?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I couldn't even sell that out.
that would kill your funding in pretty short order.
So yeah, we're planning to finish it on the February the 5th. So we're really going through the playoff time when a lot of casual fans come into the game, and the idea was to run the Kickstarter while that was going. And we launched on Boxing Day, and the game funded in 24 hours. I set a £7,000 goal on it, which means that I would be able to produce the game and get it out to people if that number of people ordered it. But it's done really well. We're up to over £12,000 in the first week, and getting a lot of interest in it.
So what do I get for my Kickstarter page?
Okay, so there are a couple of we've tried to keep the pledge level simple, because again, one of the things that really slows down Kickstarters is people give hundreds of options, and then the whole post Kickstarter backer survey and everything takes months, and one little piece can stop people playing. So for your options, if you get in quick, if there are still any available, we have the £70 base game option. For that, you get the high quality game board, you get first down markers and such like, which are actual plastic flags that sit on the board. The chain is actually represented as real pieces, and you get high quality counters, which are made of the resin, and also you get an offense and a defense to play against each other. That's 14 figures designed by one of the top figure designers for fantasy football, Raphael from RNS Studio. So they're highly realistic figures. You get custom dice and the rules.
Awesome.
Plus any stretch goals. And so far in the first week, we've already unlocked a tight end figure and a safety figure, and we've also unlocked a centre, so that we've got a separate offensive lineman holding the ball ready to snap.
Is he going to have different stats, or is he just the guy with the ball between his legs?
To keep the game running, we generally the base game starts with the offensive line having the same stats, so it will be.
Right.
There is going to be the opportunity to mould offensive linemen with slightly different stats as we go along, but at the moment it just makes the game run faster.
Mm-hmm.
But what we found is that's what we set the level at. But people, they really want to paint up two teams. Now that's the full sort of 22 figures plus all the other things. 28 figures in the game, I mean. Plus, we're offering double the stretch goals for that. Now, that is a £110, but, it's going really well. There's a lot of people have gone for that level because they want that full squad kind of feel. So players everywhere on the sideline.
You said you were moving to the idea of possibly playing an 11-a-side game. I assume that's partly going to help with that.
And actually, what I'd really like and I'm hanging back. We've talked about with a design team that we would like to release a booster set that's just the extra figures that take you up to 11 aside if you want to play it. Now, it's going to come with a health warning that we don't think it actually plays as well at 11 aside. But, there's some people want to play 11 aside. They want to be purists, and we do understand that. But actually, at the moment, with the stretch goals unlocking as they are, it's going to come very close to the fact that that option, the 2-team option, is going to have enough to play 11, or actually even the 1-team option, they're going to have enough to play 11 aside if it carries on the way it's going. We've unlocked 2 more players, 1 on offense, 1 on defense this week, extra players. So you're already up to 8 aside. So if it doesn't match that by stretch goals, near the end, we will probably release a small booster pack that's the figures plus some rules changes that you have to make 11 aside.
Cool. Okay, just a quick question then. So, if you end up in a situation, and again, this comes back to my thinking of playing, 8 or 9 aside, because actually I've seen it, I've been there and coached it. Is that just an option that you just add those figures into the game?
Absolutely.
Oh, right. So they just slot in?
Yeah, because the plays only really need to know where the offensive line are, and then indicate the skill player or players who are going to be used in that play. So if you have 8 or 9 players, they slot in. They just might not be doing anything on the card when you play it. But cool. As those players have as those stretch goals have been released, the tight end has extra cards. So if you do play 8 aside and you want the tight end on there are cards for him to use.
Right. Okay. Because typically up to 9 aside, what you're adding the extra skill positions.
Absolutely.
So you're adding the tight end. You're adding the fullback as well as the halfback. And it's only at 10 and 11 that you get the extra standard lineman.
Yes,
so
the game plays brilliantly at 7, 8, 9 aside. It does. It's fine. I mean, I like 7 aside because I like being able to play a game and go bang, hour and a half, and that's the kind of length you would play if you wanted to play a tournament. I'd love to play a tournament of this. That's a dream. To dream the impossible dream. But you can play 8 or 9, and that's fine. It won't make it into too arduous or long a game. If you want to play 11, you do have to change the rules ever so slightly. We would need to amend them. We need to put out an amendment for that, and you would also have to have the tackles. So and the running games and the run plays would need some cards that took into account that.
So, any sneak previews we can have on stretch goals that aren't on the Kickstarter yet?
Oh, actually, I nearly let one slip a second ago. Yeah, well, this is the great thing about the game. We set out with this is a lot of people have told us that it wouldn't fund. At the UK Games Expo, I had other companies coming and saying, you'll never get the money for this. People in Britain aren't interested in American football. And so I set the stretch goals up to 16,000. Now, if this follows the normal Kickstarter kind of curve, we're going to look at a lot of bidding and interest coming up to the last week or in the last week. So at the moment, we're up to the fullback, the linebacker and fullback, an extra sculpt for the linebacker and the fullback. But after that, we're looking at, I definitely want a defensive end. And he's planned and ready for the next thing. We'll also be looking at a slot back would be my next thing. So that kind of very specialist receiver who only comes on multiple player downs, who can't block for toffee, but is a useful extra weapon in the passing game. And then to beat him,
is there any truth that Wes Welker has modelled for that?
You might
I'm
think
trying to
so.
think,
I
do you
couldn't
remember?
possibly comment.
See, all my American football references. I think my brain stopped operating about 10 years ago. Do you remember when the guy had the run and shoot offenses? One of them was in the original World League. He ran at them Detroit. He ran run and shoot at Detroit as well, and they would always have little receivers. They'd run 4 receivers, but they'd all be tight. It was Mouse somebody or other was his name. So we want a receiver like that, the sort of guy who's got amazing hands but isn't really very physical. And then equally, you can bring into the game, which will be one of the last one of the last things we're looking to stretch goal towards, is having a nickel or dime back. You know, the
Mouse Davis.
Yes, it was Mouse. Yeah, excellent.
Yep.
What a strange name.
Thank you, Wikipedia.
Yeah, and but yeah, he so getting those sort of other passing games. We've got the one I'm looking forward to is the fullback, because I think it will just be fun to have a very different kind of running back in the game, one who can just batter forwards, and he uses his skill to be able to charge and push people out of the way, rather than the running backs who come in the box who are evasive running backs. You know, they're always trying to dink around people.
You then have the option of, is it him with the ball or is it the guy behind him?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and it gives a lot more fun running plays. The cards that come with him sort of open up the running game a bit more.
Ooh. I'm getting tempted now.
Yes. Give him the ball. Yes. Show my edge again. Give him the ball. Everyone yells, "Moose!"
Oh no, mine's a Koya, the Nigerian nightmare. You know, the massive for Kansas City, who just the linebackers just couldn't stop him because he just ran over them. So
give you scope for the traditional 3 yards and a cloud of dust offense, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, I know there are fans of the game who want to play like that, and that's not the initial way the game's been designed, but it's the way that it can be adapted when you get the right players and the right plays in your playbook. You know, frustrate your opponent, try and run the football so that when he takes over, he's got less plays to go.
Sounds good.
So, we talked a lot about players and stuff. I know people have been asking about potentially pimping game boards, so maybe having either a vinyl or even a neoprene game mat. Is that something that's potentially on the cards, or is that kind of out of scope of where we are at the moment?
Oh, not at all. No, that's one of those. This has been a fun week, and it's been a learning experience for me in a lot of ways about how Kickstarters work and how people are brilliant because they come up with all these fantastic ideas. Our original boards that we demo on were vinyl, and they're great, but I think people really want the neoprene, the hard-wearing mouse mat type. And the printer who did the vinyl ones for us doesn't go up to that kind of depth of level. So we're sourcing a printer now, and hopefully we'll have it ready so that we can allow people to pledge for that nearer the end of the Kickstarter. Because I love my neoprene pitches. I've got Dreadball ones. I've got 2 or 3 Dreadball ones. So and they are a brilliant way to play. So but in the game, it's a card pitch that's just partly just for Kickstarter people. Is it keeps your postage down. Because it's really hard to stick a vinyl pitch in, and I once got a pitch that was folded badly, and so it creased. And I couldn't get the creases out of it, and I never want to do that to somebody.
No, that's fair enough. Okay, so it's a as you might expect, a kind of a standard board game board style in for the standard pitch, but other options will hopefully become available.
Neoprene pitch, hopefully, yes. Short answer.
Excellent.
Going back to our favourite elephant in the room,
Yep.
Any plans for rules for fans, cheerleaders, etc., etc., etc.?
Not at the moment. I think I'm really interested in the gameplay. I think all those things would be fun, but we've tried to make the gameplay the key element of the game. You know, if it feels like American football on the pitch, I think those would be great. But I'll be honest, they're not in this game. But the game's got legs. It's people are interested in it. They've been pledging for it. We will have funding now to develop the game further, which is fantastic, so we can start getting sculpts ready in the future for other games, and also improve on our design work, because our number one thing we found is that graphic design is not our business. So we're trying to make sure the game gets the rulebook especially gets a thoroughly good design work done on it, so it looks the quality it should do when people get it.
And a proofreader and an index.
Yes.
Sorry, regular listeners will know they're two of my pet peeves.
Oh, right. What, lack of index?
Lack of index. Nothing
right.
worse than trying to hunt an entire rulebook for rules.
I will scribble that down I will not mention a certain game by name, but I got one game where just the first edition of the rulebook was unusable. You just spent the whole time flicking back and forwards, and nothing seemed to be input. So I'm trying to we're letting people slowly see the rulebook, but we don't want to release it on Kickstarter. There's a number of reasons for that. One is intellectual property. And also a lot of the successful Kickstarters I've looked at for sports miniature games haven't released the rulebooks in advance, so I'm sort of following their model. But also we want the game, the rules to be designed and crucially graphically designed up to a quality where I want people to see them. And that's actually what the Kickstarter was there to raise the money for.
Cool. Right.
Okay, the only thing I was going to say is we've got until, I'm going to say it in nice NFL voiceover, you've got until February the 5th to bid for it. We're not going to do any after Kickstarter pledges, because I want to get those games out to the people who've pledged.
Oh, we do,
time.
I suppose, have the ultimate question of when do you anticipate everything being ready to roll?
We've said August, to actually get the game out to people. We are not going to send it to retail before we have completed the Kickstarter, because if I have a total hate, it's not getting a game and seeing it in my local gaming shop. That just drives me mad, because you've invested and pledged and helped that game get started, and then they've sent it off to other people and they're buying it in the shop and playing it before you. So the idea is to work hell for leather to get it ready. If I had a date in the back of my head, I would love June. I want to get it. I don't just want to complete the Kickstarter. I want to complete it under time, because then people will understand how we work, how efficient we are, and how we want to get this game done. Give it a good reputation.
And you've gone for postage afterwards, I note.
Yes, that's because if somebody... there is a huge danger, and some Kickstarters have fallen for this, where postage rates change. So, or the weight of the game turns out to be just pushing it over a certain level, and you can bankrupt your Kickstarter that way. So we are going for postage afterwards.
That's we could name a few.
Yeah.
Indeed, yeah. I think these days that is an incredibly sensible decision.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yes. So what have you learned from? What would you do differently if you could start the Kickstarter? I mean, it's probably a little early to say. If you could start the Kickstarter again.
Oh, if I could start it again, if I could have the last week's been brilliant and it's been fantastic. But if I could have it again, I would have already paid, if I could have found the money, but we'd reached as a company our limit. I would have already paid for the game cards to be professionally graphical design, so that they just look a bit smarter. Right. I've got them up to a stage. Well, actually, they look fine when we're playing. When I took it to Dragon Meet and people played the game, nobody batted an eyelid at them. But I think when you put them up on the Kickstarter, people notice. But there's other things I've just had to live with. I read an article this week on 10 things you should never do with a Kickstarter, and I'd broken 9 of them. So, but then I sat there and went, well, I've broken 9 of them, but I funded. So I think the one I did right was to build a community. So I went out to the UK Games Expo and Dragon Meet and other things, and I met with people and I demoed the game, and those people are buying the game.
Indeed, guilty as charged. Do you want to?
Yeah, no, thank you for your continued.
Well, Andrew, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, mate. Yeah, as we chatted, the one thing that one of the things that's really come over is your absolute enthusiasm for what you do. and the passion for the sport, the passion for what you've been doing, and that's come out in, as I say. I mean, I've only managed to get to play this once so far, but I really enjoyed it. Actually, I believe my son ended up playing it a dozen more than I did.
Yeah, he came back. He enjoyed it so much the first day. He came back and played it the next day.
Knowing Josh, that sort of doesn't surprise me.
And
Indeed not. I'm sure the fact that there is now a particular centre figure will please him immensely.
Oh, fantastic! I should just drop in here because you're asking about spoilers. This isn't about fourth quarter football, but we're already thinking now as a company where we can go forwards. And my figure, one of my figure people, play testers, and I are taking the next step. We've got another idea for a game, so you'll hear it here first. GBH Golf, which is the dungeon crawler crossed with golf game that you never realised that you wanted, but you're going to love it when you see it. So that's coming out later this year.
Previews at the UK Games Expo,
Absolutely,
perhaps?
yeah. I've got a bigger stand this year just so we can
cool.
so we can do the GBH Golf and we can do fourth quarter football at the same time. GBH Golf, if you want another way of summing up, it's what they did to American football when they did Blood Bowl, but done to golf with some dungeon crawling for then. We've got an orc with a literal club, a wizard with a staff of accuracy and stuff like this. So.
I'm sold.
Yeah.
I might well be. I love it.
See, I told you, it's something you never thought you would want, but you want it as soon as you hear about it.
You heard it here first, folks.
Indeed you did. So, Andrew, it's been a pleasure to have you on, mate. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We wish you all the very best with the
Fourth quarter
rest of the
football's Kickstarter, 5th of February ending, get in before the end.
Indeed. But when you hear this, it'll have about 2 weeks left to go. Yeah, so if you like what it is. Obviously, the other thing is you've got a load of different videos that you have done on YouTube.
Those are the ones I currently have lined up ready to watch as soon as we're done with this interview.
Yeah, we excuse the low value production values, but what we wanted to do is we're not going to show people the rulebook, but we are happy to release endless videos showing the game being played. So we've got a YouTube channel, Fourth Quarter. I can't believe it. My son is so annoyed at me because I've got more followers than he has now. And he's only 10, but he's deeply upset at this. So, and that we've had thousands of views of the videos. That's been a really good way of getting the game out. You get to see, you get to listen to me talk about the game, but more importantly, you get to listen to Dr. K and get to see her because she's a wonder. And as we go through the joys of the game, but this weekend we'll be recording down in London at Games Cafe, and we're going to be live streaming from there.
Right, yes. So that will have happened by the time you're listening to this show. The person that Andrew is playing with is a friend of the show, Mr. Rich Jones. And all being well, is that going to end up getting recorded so you could still view it on Facebook afterwards?
We'll have to see. Yes, that will depend on how successful it is and whether I win or not. No. Rich actually played me at Dragon Meet and I beat him, and I felt really guilty because I broke one of the rules of demoing, which is you should always try and give your person the chance to always let your customer win. And there I was.
Indeed.
And there he was trying to throw a long bomb on fourth down on the last play of the game, and I was still coming at him with my linebackers. So
well, as I said, all the very best, mate.
Yeah.
It's been great to chat. We look forward to seeing how fourth quarter football pans out, and I personally look forward to catching up with you at the UK Games Expo, if not before. So all the very best.
Fantastic.
And we shall catch up with you soon.
Excellent. It's been fun, gentlemen.
We hope that you're enjoying this episode of the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. If you are, would you like to support us? There's a couple of ways of doing so. You can become a patron of the show by supporting us on our Patreon page. There you can give regularly every time we produce a show. Alternatively, you may want to give a one-off donation, and you can do that by using PayPal. For more details on both these options, please click on the Donate tab on our website, www.meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. So hopefully you now know an awful lot more about American football than you did an hour and a half ago.
I don't, because I haven't listened to it yet.
How many times have we told you about breaking this wibbly-wobbly timey-wimey
Oh, sorry.
thing?
Yeah. I've learned lots, Neil. Lots and lots
Excellent.
and lots.
Not to mention eating cookies while we're recording.
Yeah.
I could physically hear him putting on weight from where I'm sitting.
Yeah, one of my shelves has started sloping. Actually, no, I think that might be the Mythic Battles box.
Indeed.
Well, I was just going to ask you a question. Oh, going back to the previous section where you said about that you bought the Mythic Battles RPG game and some dice because you wanted extra dice. Is that right? Did you check the dice that came with the Mythic Battles role-playing game were the correct dice? Because the dice that come with the Mythic Battles role-playing game are not the battle dice that you get in the game.
No, they're 0 to 5, aren't they?
Yeah.
But they're numeric as opposed to the swords.
Yeah. But would you be happy with that, Neil?
Given choice between that and nothing, yes. Because believe me, I trolled through the internet looking for 0 to 5, if I can get other types of 0 to 5 dice, and everywhere that potentially did them were out of stock.
There is a pack of the battle dice on eBay for £18 for 10 of them.
Yeah, that wasn't on there when I was looking. So I ended up buying the RPG with the dice, the RPG, but with the dice for £35. £18 for a set of dice is taking the.
That's all right. I looked at dice and thought, has he bought the wrong dice?
No, I am well. No, I am well aware. I am well aware that they are the other style of dice. But at the end of the day, it was like, excuse me. Well, I'm after that, and plus, I hear the RPG book's really nice. So
that's all right.
Hey ho, yeah.
Massively annoyingly, somebody on Amazon has a set of 50 in 2 colours, and they're out of stock.
Yes, I know. I know. I was looking at that, and yeah, they're really nice. And it's like, why are these not in stock? Yes, right. Okay, so a couple of things I want to chat about before we come to the end. I just want to give a quick shout out to a new board game and wargaming shop that is due to open in Derby on the 20th of January. One of the people in charge of it is a guy called Ian Mann, who apparently is a long-term listener. Hello, Ian. And it is called Boards and Swords. And you will have seen a link on the blog to a Kickstarter they have been running. But anyway, new shop opening in Derby, gaming shop opening in Derby. If you're in the area, well worth a look. A couple of other things I wanted to talk. I wanted a quick chat about. Right, 2 or 3 Kickstarters on the horizon, which may or may not interest people. First one, I only saw this today, which is the day we were recording this. The first time I saw it, something popped up on Facebook, and I had a look and went, "Ooh, ooh, ooh." It will probably, by the time you hear this, it will probably have launched. There's a game coming out by, or Kickstarter being launched by a company called Awaken Realms. Now, these are the same people who did Lords of Hellas. If you remember Lords of Hellas from last year, which my other mate Dave backed. And they're producing a new sci-fi horror board game called Nemesis. And that's launching on the 17th of January. And if Space Hulk is Aliens the board game, Nemesis is Alien, the board game, or something like that. It's that sort of premise.
Is there zombies in it?
No, there's aliens in it.
Oh, not interested.
Aliens bursting out of people and growing, and you have to fix the ship and do various other bits and pieces. It looks really cool. So I was drawing over that today. So that's called Nemesis. That's coming out. That's launching on the 17th of January. Then in February, is it the 7th of February? I think this might be the 7th of February. You've got U-Boat, the board game, launching.
Yeah, that,
pun intended.
That does look interesting, and I'm not sure why. You know, it's got protractors, and you have to sort of plot costs, and it looks very in depth. But I found it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was actually at the UK Games Expo last year. They had a prototype of it, and basically you got 4 people. You're playing different parts of the crew of a U-boat. But the maps are actual replicas they're taken from the actual maps that the Kriegsmarine used during the war, and so you're plotting courses in the same way that a navigation officer on a U-boat would do, stuff like that. It looks really cool.
Definitely has hidden depths.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Well, you did before. You just didn't realise you'd done it.
And if I remember rightly,
it's based.
Considering our discussion from last week, I think it's got an app attached to it.
Yeah, it's all app based.
Yeah. And then the other news that came out.
That's going to torpedo Tobbsy's chances of not pledging for anything, isn't it?
Oh, again, you're on form tonight. Where's that badum-tish sound effect, Neil?
What you mean? What you mean? This one?
Yeah, it's all about timing in this show.
Because everyone knows that the secret of good comedy is
timing.
Oh boy, guys, don't give up the day job.
Yes. Okay. So the other interesting news, I don't know if you spotted this week, guys. Mantic have announced what their next Kickstarter is. Have you seen this?
Is this the Hellboy one?
Yeah, Mantic are doing Hellboy. And I kind of went, Hellboy, yes, Mantic.
Ooh.
Oh.
Ooh.
Couldn't they just get on and actually finish the games they have out?
I am a huge Hellboy fan. I love Hellboy. I've got all the graphic. I've got a lot of the graphic novels and stuff, and so that was. And so I got that. It was like fantastic, and it's Mantic, and it's like. Enthusiasm somewhat tempered.
Well, you could use the figures in something else.
Yes. So that's coming in April. I'm kind of thinking, yeah, colour me interested. It will see what they do with it. And of course, it will be a case of it won't be arriving for a year or maybe more.
It'll have no support once it arrives. See Mars Attacks. Or am I being overly cynical?
Mars Attacks basically launched and finished, didn't it? To my mind, Hellboy's a bigger franchise than Mars Attacks. It's a much bigger. It's kind of in. I think it's certainly kind of Walking Dead sort of big. I mean, I know Walking Dead is kind of flavour of the month sort of thing because of this series is currently ongoing. But at the same time, they are actually making a new Hellboy film, so it might have some legs or hooves.
True. You can't queue up your own jokes. That's not. How long were you sat there with your finger over the button? Come on, I'm about to say it.
Yeah. So, yeah. It's like that. That was, so, yeah, as I said, tempered enthusiasm. Hellboy, Mantic. Okay, we'll see.
Maybe they'll do a really good job on it.
Yeah,
And not impossible.
indeed. Especially if they do, things like if they do it in hard plastic, that'd be nice as opposed to this other stuff they use.
Restic.
Yeah, you like a lot of their Kings of War models, don't you?
Yep.
That was out of enthusiasm.
It was, wasn't it?
They're on the painting pile. Ask me when they get off the painting pile. And of course, there is one other thing we really should mention.
Yes.
Mr. Hyde's Patreon.
Oh yes. 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 Good friend of the show, although apparently now an even better friend of the veteran wargamer.
Well, it's not his fault you're not doing View from the Veranda podcast anymore.
Oh well, you know.
Well, actually, wait, yes, it is.
Yes, friend of the show, Mr. Henry Hyde has decided that he is launching a Patreon campaign, and it would appear that a lot of people are pleased that he's launching a Patreon campaign to produce more war games related content.
Because demand does good stuff.
Yeah.
Indeed. So we will put a link on the show notes. Go and have a look. Lots of stuff. Lots of different pledge levels and things that things are available.
If you go to one of the staff officer levels, which is $10 and above, he'll even write you a custom scenario.
Cool.
And another little snippet of news.
Go on.
Redoubt Miniatures
Yeah.
have been bought.
Oh,
really?
right.
Yes, and I quote from the webpage, "We are now closed and cannot accept any more orders till the end of January because the machinery is being moved to the new owner, who is Andy from Grubby Tanks."
Oh, cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
Basically, Trevor and Susan are, I think, signing off and retiring gracefully, as far as I can tell. And Grubby Tanks will be taking over. Given I seem to, Grubby are a fairly regular show attendee.
Yeah.
You should see more Redoubt at shows.
Excellent. Good stuff.
Which can only be a good thing.
There is one more little bit of news. And
Go on then.
this, well, Neil, I don't want to be the one who's giving you bad news or anything, especially on so public a platform. But I've just seen that Mr. Hickman has posted that he's just played Star Wars Imperial Assault. But you're here, Neil.
What?
And he's
Without me?
it looks like Mr. Hickman is playing games without you, Neil. He's
War game adultery.
I don't know. I mean, how do you feel about this, Neil?
You just wait till I see you in the morning.
I mean, maybe he's playing solo with the app.
Well, one would hope. One would hope.
I mean,
He wasn't meant to be doing that.
Don't go there.
Mr. Whittaker, you know me so well.
I wonder what scenario he's playing.
He's playing away.
Is that anything like Return of the Jedi?
And on that bombshell.
On that bombshell, it is time for us to leave. Well, thank you for listening to our first show recorded in 2018. I hope you found it interesting. Thank you to joining us. Thank you for Mike with a very large box. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you to the other Mike with two even larger boxes.
Well, yes. Thank you, Neil. Thank you all. Goodbye to the Meeps.
Indeed.
I really thought we got rid of that word for 2018.
It's Meep City. 2018 is the year of the Meeps.
Cool. And thank you one and all for listening. And we will speak to you again in a couple of weeks.
Good night, folks.
Bye all.
Take care, everybody. Happy gaming. We'll speak to you soon. Thank you for listening to the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, why not share it with others by leaving us a review on iTunes? And if you have any comments or questions, you can always email the show. The address is info@meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. And you can also visit our webpage, where you'll find a complete episode archive, all the View from the Veranda podcasts, rules reviews, and our blog of hobby items and news, which is updated several times a week. This is also where you'll find the links to our presence on social media, and here you can follow us on Twitter or join our Facebook group. And finally, here you can also find details should you wish to support us by making a donation to the podcast. All this on the Meeples and Miniatures website, www.meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 3.0 Unported license. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.